Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Valencia Property Podcast. And today I'm recording outside. I'm on holiday in Asturias, and that's relevant to what I'm going to tell you today. This is a special episode, and it's all about squatting. Squatting is not a problem in Spain, at least until it's your problem. So I want to tell you a story. It happened last week to a property we hold the keys for. I wasn't in the area. I'm up in Asturias in northern Spain for my holidays. By the time it was over, I'd spent 3 days doing almost nothing else, 8 hours a day and stuff like that. This is that story, and it's also a warning, because if you own a property in Spain that's ever going to sit empty for a time, then you need to hear it and you need to take some measures. The title of this episode is Squatting is Not a Problem in Spain Until It's Your Problem. And last week it was most definitely my problem. And I chose that title deliberately. Most owners think squatting is something that happens to other people in other neighbourhoods in properties that are obviously abandoned. This property had been rented out continuously for 8 years. No issues at all. The tenant moved out last month. We were in the process of getting it ready for the next let. We'd just done a reform of it because it needed a couple of things, because apparently the neighbour next door had explosive snoring. So we did some soundproofing, put a new air conditioning unit in, various other things. Anyway, it was getting ready for the next let and we had somebody in line to come in. And then this happened. I got a WhatsApp from the building manager. The neighbours had mentioned there was a problem with the flat. I was away, of course, so I sent a colleague round with the keys, and I brought in a builder who had actually done the work to go around just in case we needed to force anything or in case there was a problem. When they got there, the key didn't work. Someone had changed the lock. The neighbours told us they'd heard people getting in around 4 in the morning the night before because an alarm had gone off on another one, which is actually a bank property, and then they'd moved on to this. Nobody was in the flat when we got there, so we got in through a window from the flat above because, there's a roof above, and it's relatively easy to drop down onto the terrace and go in because the blinds have been left open. Now, previously, this is how they had got in, but the blinds hadn't been left open. But anyway, this is where the story really started, because a short time later, a man turned up claiming it was his flat that had been living there for 2 weeks, and one of the neighbours backed him up. We now know that that neighbour is connected to the group behind this, not an innocent bystander, but a mole in the building, part of the operation, if you like. And we called the police, of course, and this is the part will frustrate you if you haven't dealt with it before, and it certainly frustrated us. The man had a piece of paper, supposedly a contract, that he said he'd signed in an estate agency in Betra. Not signed by us, not signed by anyone official, not signed by the owner. We had the property deed, we had the previous rental contract, we had the invoices for the work recently done on the flat, and the police actually checked and confirmed that the estate agency he named didn't actually exist. The police still did nothing. As he was leaving, though, he did do one thing, the policeman. He gave us a piece of advice off the cuff, and he said, offer him €3,000 and he'll go. That's the system here for the local police. They don't want any problems, it seems. Anyway, we didn't take that route. Instead, we called a desocupa company. Now, these companies, they're pretty big in Spain, usually in areas which have a big problem with ocupaciones. And it's a business that specialises in getting occupiers out, or rather squatters out. The fee was €3,500 plus VAT, half up front and half on regaining possession. We signed the contracts and everything. They went in on day 3 and got access. And then they started negotiating. The occupiers, and by now there were 6 of them, not one, asked for €10,000 to leave. The Desocupa team talked them down to 3,000, and the owner, reasonably when I rang him, refused to pay that on the basis that he was already paying a company specifically to remove them without paying anyone off. And of course, we'd already been told by the police, give them 3,000 and they will go. So the alternative is called access control. They're not allowed to beat the crap out of these people and throw them out. We needed to slowly cut off their ability to come and go, waiting them out, possibly regaining the property when everyone happened to be out at once. Nobody could tell us how long that would take 6 people living there, and we suspected one person would always be left in the flat just in case. So somewhere in the middle of this, we found out that the man who'd shown us the fake contract had also been paid €2,000 by someone to break into the flat in the first place. And that's a business model. There's an organiser. The occupiers get paid a small amount, €2,000 if you like, to get in. Then whatever the owner pays above that to get them out gets split between the occupiers and the organiser. It's a business run for profit, and the profit comes directly out of owners. By this point, I've been on this for 8 hours a day for 3 days running, and it was eating my holiday alive, and all I could see was this was going to carry on happening. So I made a call. I told the Desokupa company I'd pay €2,000 now, or they could start, in their words, working harder. They gave this proposal to the squatters, and the squatters decided to accept it. I paid it to the Desokupa company's account. They paid it in cash to the occupiers, and 15 minutes later, the 6 of them were out with all their belongings, and they signed a document confirming they had no claim to the property whatsoever. The Desokupa company then secured the flat properly. Blinds and windows sealed from the inside, the main door lock replaced, and a new alarm fitted wired to a smoke bomb system that triggers if anyone gets back in, connected directly to the police and the fire brigade. And that's important because if the alarm goes off and the police are called, it's obviously a break-in. Plus, there are interior cameras so we can keep an eye on it while it's empty. So that's what happened. So what should you take from this? First, if a property is going to be empty for any real stretch of time, get an alarm system installed before it's empty, not after. Ground floor flats and top floor flats with roof access and houses are ones that are most exposed. Mid-floor flats behind proper security door are very little risk. Second, look into anti-squatting insurance. It exists specifically so that if this happens, an insurer handles the cost and the organisation, not you personally. And you could be handling it at the worst possible moment. The owner of this property is not in Spain. I was in Spain, but 800 odd kilometres away. We had to sort it out remotely. One of my colleagues was doing most of the spade work down in Valencia. Third, and I mean this specifically, don't call the local police first. In our experience, they were worse than useless. We were told by the Desokupa company we should have called the Guardia Civil. And the civil guard, let's just say they're generally far less accommodating towards occupiers and will actually take a stance rather than saying, well, it's your word against that guy's word. Fourth, and this is an impossible one, but don't let this happen to you in August. I know how that sounds, but it's true. Civil courts in Spain are effectively closed until September. Criminal proceedings take a very long time regardless of the month, and in practice they achieve very little for an owner trying to get a property back quickly. It's a civil matter. So, as they're closed, you can't make a report until the 1st of September. This happened right at the start of August. Fifth, and this is the one that matters most. Squatting is not a problem in Spain until it's your problem. It doesn't happen to properties that are lived in. It doesn't happen to actively rented properties as long as you've got insurance on the tenant, as long as you've checked out the tenant beforehand. It happens in any gaps. This flat had 8 years of tenants, well, one tenant actually, 0 issues. The 1 month it was empty between tenancies is the month that it got hit. And in this particular case, it is a special case because there's a mole in the building. And here's the part I don't enjoy saying. I suspect some of you won't enjoy hearing it either. And there's reasons, and I'll tell you what the reasons are. Sometimes it's the more sensible choice to pay these people off, even knowing the money is going to people who don't deserve it, rather than waiting out a legal process that could run for 12 months or even years. Pay, you get the property back immediately, undamaged, and you move on with your life. Some people will say that just pushes the problem onto the next owner down the line, and that's probably true. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not pretending it's a comfortable answer. It's just the honest one, based on what actually happened to us this week. So, if you want to see the photos the Desokupa company took during all of this, get in touch directly. We can't publish them with the people on them for various reasons to do with privacy and stuff like that. But we're happy to show anyone who's trying to understand what this looks like in practice. And that's the story. If you own a property here and it's ever going to be empty, take it seriously. It cost us 8 hours a day for 3 days and several €1,000 to fix something that a single alarm system and the right insurance policy could possibly have prevented, or at least made far less likely to happen and less painful. So that's it for this special edition. Back to the normal format next time, and if you've got any questions, get in touch with us at information@valencia-property.com, and we can give you some advice and also tell you which alarm system we use so you can also install it if you feel it's really necessary. And I'd just like to say, this is all very alarming, etc., etc. It's not a problem 99.9% of the time. And it's very rarely a problem. I've been doing this job for 26 years. This is the second time I've had a real problem with squatters. Um, and we've dealt with a lot of cheap rundown property as well in the past. And we've dealt with a lot of different areas, richer areas, poorer areas. 26 years, we've had 2 problems with squatters. It happens the world over. The problem is when you haven't got support from the local police and when the system just takes so long that you're better off paying. That's it for this week. This is a special episode of the Valencia Property Podcast, and we're back to our normal programming in Season 5 next month.